Everybody. This is on Social Security and the 401k system. So a number of you asked about 401ks. Is it worth it? How do they work? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a bunch of you were also questioning how the math behind Social Security, and especially like how does it work in your case? So let me deal with 401ks, which are complicated, but they're easier to understand. 401ks are like a private savings account. In general, yes, they're worth it. If, like, I'll give you my case. In the event of LVC, everyone who works at LVC, or at least everybody who works here full time, gets what's called a match. So if I put 5% of my income in the 401k, or in this case, it's a 403b, but that's, who cares? If I put in 5% of my pre-tax income, then the employer matches that with 9%. In higher ed, that's pretty good, or it's about middle of the pack rather. In the American workplace, that's really good. So it's fairly generous. So in higher ed, wages tend to be low. The retirement benefits tend to be better. Now, is that a good deal? Heck yes. As soon as I put $5 in, my employer puts in 9, right? That's 180% return from day one. So that's free money. I should take it if I can afford to do it. And at LVC, the benefits people have traditionally really talked people into doing it. Now, after that happens, things get ginormously complicated. How much do they charge in fees? Well, it's through TIAA-CREF, which isn't great, but it's not as high as it could be elsewhere. Do I put the money into one of, like, almost literally 100 different kinds of funds? I could put all the money into savings, like a money market. I could put all the money into bonds, U.S. Treasuries, other governments' treasuries, private companies' bonds. I could put all the money into stocks. I could put all the money into this, that, and the other thing. And all of that is what makes it overwhelming, complicated, and unclear. You don't know what the stock market's going to do. You don't know how any of this stuff works because, again, generally I would say most Americans in the middle class or in the working class don't save a huge amount and don't invest. And all these questions about where the money goes are investment questions. And they're hard to deal with because people have low literacy about them and they're kind of embarrassed to ask. And they might know something, and that something often comes from, say, the business section or other kinds of places. And most of the advice you get there is bad. Most of the people who talk about this stuff are hacks. So you could boil all of that stuff down to really simple stuff, which is you should do it as early as possible, as much as you can afford. You should make sure that the fees are low. And in general, you want them in index funds that broadly represent the market, and then don't mess with it for 40 or 50 years. And if you can do that, you will be fine. And then John raised this in class. If you can save a little bit each month, you can end up, and all of you in the class can end up in a good place. But it's hard for people to do it, either because they don't have a 401k, or even if they do, they don't understand it, and there's a lot of classic mistakes you can make. And we're Americans. We make all of those mistakes. Okay. So the math behind Social Security is more complicated. You know what? I'm going to do this in a separate entry, because you may not want to watch the whole thing.